Hi, boys and girls. So I realized that my Zoom meeting yesterday did not save, unfortunately. So if you have not yet done Oddballs to All Stars, I'm going to quickly read this story to you. This is an independent activity for your reading grade for lesson 10 in Ready Reading. So I'm not going to give you too much help on this, but I will read you this story and the questions that go with it. So here we go. Words to know. As we read, look inside, around, and beyond these words to figure out what they mean. This word current, when we're reading, is going to mean how the water flows. The water flows a certain direction. It's called a current. The coast is the edge where the water and the land meet. And volunteering means you are doing a job for somebody or helping somebody without getting paid. So we're going to read from Oddball to All Stars, or from Oddball All Stars by Jody Wheeler Toppin from the magazine Ask. The Galapagos Islands are home to some unusual penguins. They swim, they waddle, and they lay eggs. They do the same things other penguins do, but they do them on tropical islands, where the rocks can get hotter than 100 degrees. It's so hot that the penguins' eggs will cook if they are left out in the sun. What are penguins doing in the tropics? Scientists think the first penguins got to the Galapagos by following a cool current. It flows up the coast of South America. So here's Antarctica, where penguins are usually found. They followed this current right up here to the Galapagos Islands. Now, small changes called adaptations let them live where it's too hot for other penguins. And you can see them right here in the Galapagos Islands. Keeping cool. Remember, that's our heading. That's one of our text features. When people are hot, sweat helps them cool off. But birds can't sweat. At the hottest time of the day, the Galapagos penguins hang out in the cool water. But eventually, they have to return to land. And when they do, their feathers trap heat like a heavy winter coat. Unlike Antarctic penguins, Galapagos penguins have bare skin around their beaks, on their feet, and under their flippers. These are some of those adaptations they were telling us about. When they need to cool off, they strike a funny pose. They hunch over to keep the sun off their feet. And then they hold their wings out to let the wind blow across the bare places. The wind carries the heat away. They also open their mouths and pant like dogs. There's another adaptation. They've learned how to cool off that way. Galapagos penguins protect their eggs by building nests under the shades of rocks out of the sun. Let me fix this line so you can read the next one. There we go. So they also build nests under the shade of rocks. That's another way that they survive in this hot weather. Here's our Galapagos Penguins trading card, is what it'll be called when it asks you questions about it. The scientific name is Spheniscus mendiculus. The home base is the Galapagos Islands off the coast of Ecuador. And they are 21 inches tall, which is a little bigger than a newborn baby. So think about a ruler's 12 inches and then add 9 more inches to that. And that's about how tall these penguins are. So now we're on page 3. This is the sidebar. That's another text feature we've learned about called Penguin Hide and Seek. As a boy growing up on the Galapagos Islands, Hernan Vargas had no idea how special the plants and animals around him were. In high school, he started volunteering with scientists who came from all around the world to study them. And now he is a scientist himself. Counting penguins is an important part of their job. Scientists regularly count the penguins to see how they're doing. But how many are hiding? To answer this question, Vargas and his team caught a bunch of penguins and they painted some of their feathers yellow, then released them. When they counted the penguins that year, they kept a separate count of the ones with yellow feathers. They found about half of their painted penguins, so they knew that about half of them were hiding somewhere. And if half of the painted penguins were hiding, then probably half of all of the penguins were hiding too. So now they know that when they count penguins, they're getting about half of the total number. So our questions start on page 4. I'm going to read the questions to you. If you need to pause this video at any time to go back and look for your evidence, that is a great idea. Question 1. What key words are called out in this article? Remember, the key words are those important words the author wants us to look for. Oddball all-stars, scientific name, home base, size, tropical, adaptations, penguin, hide and seek. Which one of these were the key words in the article? Question 2. Where in the article would you tell someone to look for facts about how scientists keep track of the Galapagos penguins? So I'm looking for, how do scientists keep track of them? Which part do I look in? Do I look under the trading card called Galapagos Penguin on page 2? Do I look at Turn Up the Heat, which is the heading on page 1? Do I look under Keeping Cool, which is the heading on page 2? Or do I look under Penguin Hide and Seek, which is the sidebar on page 3? Where would I look to find where scientists keep track of the penguins? Question 3 is a little more challenging. Next to each of these facts about the penguins, write the letter in this section that shows where that fact was found. You will use some of these letters more than once. That is so, so important. Some of the assignments I've already got in are a little confused about this. You are not numbering. They're not in the order in which they happen. We're not sequencing. So I'm looking at this fact. Penguins pant like dogs to cool off. Did I find that in Turn Up the Heat, Keeping Cool, the Penguin Trading Card, or the Hide and Seek sidebar? And then I will write A, B, C, or D, depending on where I found that fact. The birds are about 21 inches tall. I think I remember that on the trading card. So I would write a C for the birds are about 21 inches tall. Next, the penguins' eggs will cook if left out in the sun. Which one of these did I find it? You are not crossing these out as you use them because you will use them more than once. So think of this as like your word bank, but you are not crossing them out. You're not circling any of them. They are just there so that you know what letter it goes with. Penguins may have reached the Galapagos by following a cool current, A, B, C, or D. Scientists paint some birds to help them count the penguins, A, B, C, or D. Bare skin on parts of the penguins helps them cool off. And again, where did we find it? You will use A probably more than once, or B probably more than once. You will use D more than once. You might use C more than once. That is okay. It says you will use some of them more than once. You will use all of these at least one time each, but a couple of them you will use twice. Now let's look at page 5. Look at the underlined antonyms in the sentence from Penguin Hide and Seek sidebar. Antonyms are words that have the opposite meanings. To answer this question, Vargas and his team caught a bunch of penguins and painted some of their feathers yellow, then released them. The word caught is the antonym of the word released. What does released mean? Does released mean trapped, hid behind, colored, or let go of? What does the word released mean? And then for your right, you're not going to do part 5 of the planning the response. We're just going to look at part 6. Explain the similarities and differences between the Galapagos penguins and their Antarctic cousins. That's your first thing you have to answer. How are Galapagos penguins and Antarctic penguins similar and different? That's the first step that you've got to do here. You've got to answer that question. How are they similar? How are they different? Okay. Let me change this a little bit so that it's a little bit easier for y'all to read. Okay. Now we're going to keep reading, figure out what other thing we have to answer. Now you're not choosing one of these to answer. You have to answer all 3 of these to get all of your points. First, tell how they are similar. Then tell how they have had to change. So we're going to say, how are the penguins similar? How have the Galapagos penguins had to change? And then the third question you are going to answer, what are those changes and how do they help the penguins survive? So what, or rather, why have they had to change and what changes did they make and how do they help? So as you are writing, you need to make sure you answer these 3 questions as part of our prompt. How are the Galapagos penguins and Antarctic penguins similar? Why have the Galapagos penguins had to change? What about the Galapagos Islands made them have to change from the Antarctic penguins where they used to live? And what changes did they make? What are some things they did to adapt, those adaptations? And how do those things help? Remember it said how they pant like a dog? How does that help them? It helps them cool down. So things like that for what changes they made. So this is part of your written response. Make sure you really take your time on this one. This is 3rd grade SBAC prep work. Okay. By the end of 3rd grade, you will be able to do this on your own, read the story on your own, and answer all of these questions in this prompt without me giving you these 3 questions to answer. So please make sure you take your time and do your very best. I will see you all soon.